Good day, everybody. Hello. Right, this is Shadow Wheater. Now, I have probably got a couple of videos to do today. Yeah. First, though, we're going to do Sneaky Sunak at his third PMQs.
Mr. Speaker, with Armistice Day on Friday, I know that colleagues from across the House will want to join me in remembering those who have lost their lives in the service of our country. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others in addition to my duties in this House. I shall have further such meetings later today.
Neil Coyle. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The people I serve will, of course, be commemorating remembrance. Bermondsey was the original home of the poppy factory, providing work for injured veterans of the Great War over 100 years ago. But, Mr. Speaker, COVID restrictions were a necessary, if painful, experience. Across the country, most people made enormous sacrifices, like Charlotte, my constituents, and local councillor Lorraine, unable to see their mums in their final days. These people were betrayed by the Conservatives who parted their way through lockdown. You may not like it, but you can all go to eat kangaroo testicles for a like it. But those Conservatives...
That was some sassiness in the House. Fuck. You may not like that line there. You may not like it, but you can all go and eat kangaroo testicles as far as I'm concerned. Fucking love it, son.
Covered Downing Street in suitcases of wine, in vomit, and in fixed penalty notices. Can this Prime Minister promise today he will use his power of veto to ensure that no one who received an FPN for breaking COVID laws is rewarded with a seat in the House of Lords?
Mr. Speaker, what I can say is that this government during COVID ensured that we protected people's jobs. That we supported the NHS to get through the difficult times, and that we rolled out the fastest vaccine in Europe. That's what we did for this country.
Not as...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I welcome the commitments made by my right honourable friend at COP27 this week. If he wants to do something that really helps get us to net zero, improves our energy security, and helps create new opportunities in places like Milford Haven, South Wales, South West England, can I urge him to really throw the full weight of his office behind delivering floating offshore wind in the Celtic Sea, and crucially ensure that decisions being taken now by the Crown Estate and the Treasury mean that the economic value, the jobs of this new industry stay here in the UK.
Well, can I praise my right honourable friend for highlighting the incredible potential of floating offshore wind technology to help us move to net zero. He's right about the opportunities in the Celtic Sea and for Wales more generally, and I can confirm to him that Crown Estate's leasing process is expected to deliver more seabed leases for many more projects.
Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Here we go.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I join the Prime Minister in his comments about Remembrance Day? We remember all those who paid the ultimate price and all those who have served and are serving our country. Mr. Speaker, the member for South Staffordshire told a civil servant to slit their throat. How does the Prime Minister think the victim of that bullying felt when he expressed great sadness at his resignation?
Mr. Speaker, unequivocally the behaviour complained of was unacceptable, and it is absolutely right that the right honourable gentleman has resigned. For the record, I did not know about any of the specific concerns relating to his conduct as Secretary
I don't believe it.
or
I
Chief
actually
Whip, which
do
dates
not
back
believe it.
some years. I believe that people in public life should treat others with consideration and respect, and those are the principles that this government will stand by.
Mr. Speaker, the member for South Staffordshire spent years courting the idea he can intimidate others, blurring the lines to normalise bullying behaviour. It's precisely why the Prime Minister gave him a job. The truth is simple. He's a pathetic bully. But he would never get away with it if people like the Prime Minister didn't hand him power. So does he regret his decision to make him a government minister?
Mr.
Really
Speaker,
pushing
I
on
obviously
this.
regret appointing someone who has had to resign in these circumstances. But I think what the British people would like to know is that when situations like this arise, that they will be dealt with properly.
You went and said you had fucking full confidence in Gavin Williamson. Sorry, Sir Gavin Williamson. You fucking lying asshole. Sneaky Sunak, the lying little prick.
And that's why it is absolutely right that he resigned, and it's why it is absolutely right that there is an investigation to look into these matters properly. I said my government would be characterised by integrity, professionalism, and accountability, and it will.
Bullshit. Fucking bullshit.
Mr. Speaker, everyone in the country knows someone like the member for South Staffordshire. A sad middle manager getting off on intimidating those beneath him. But everyone in the country also knows someone like the Prime Minister. The boss who is so weak, so worried the bullies will turn on him, that he hides behind them. What message does he think it sends when, rather than take on the bullies, he lines up alongside them and thanks them for their loyalty?
No. Oh. Rishi Sunak. Professionalism, eh, mate? Wow, that was an embarrassment. Either that or he was being utterly ignorant, which is just as bad. Starmer finished his question and managed to sit down for a full 2 seconds before Rishi Sunak even realised that Sunak had finished the question. This is... Ooh, that was poor performance there, mate.
Mr. Speaker, the message that I clearly want to send is that integrity in public life matters. And that is why it is right that the Right Honourable Member has resigned. It is why it is right that there is a rigorous process to examine these issues. But as well as focusing on this one individual, it is also right and important that we keep delivering for the whole country. And that's why this government will continue to concentrate on stabilising the economy, on strengthening the NHS, and on tackling illegal migration. Those are my priorities. Those are the priorities of the British people, and this government will deliver on them.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is he can't stand up to a run-of-the-mill bully. So he has no chance of standing up to vested interests on behalf of working people. Take Shell. They made record profits this year, £26 billion. How much have they paid under his so-called windfall tax?
Mr. Speaker, I was Chancellor who introduced an extra tax on the oil and gas companies.
At the instigation of Labour parties, it's not a win, mate.
Mr. Speaker, he talks about working people. The Right Honourable Member voted against legislation to stop strikes disrupting working people.
Your legislation is helping the police to arrest journalists who weren't even doing wrong on the back of arresting protesters for planning a protest. I am not sure it is legal to plan a protest. You should not be... this will be a subject for another video, but just a short little rant, right? Protesters aren't terrorists. Yes, I fully on board with taking out a terrorist cell before it manages to get anywhere. But as terrorists, where do we draw the line here? Anyway.
He voted against legislation to stop extremist protesters disrupting.
Extremist protesters. Right. We are heading towards a police state, people.
Working people. That's because he's not on the side of working people, Mr.
You are on the side of working people. You know what it's like to be a working person because you have to slime your way up the fucking ladder.
Speaker. That's what the Conservatives are for.
Mr. Speaker, I'm against all of those causing chaos, damage to our public services and to our economy, whether they are gluing themselves to the road or sitting on the government benches.
Boom!
Mr. Speaker, there was no answer to the question because the answer is nothing. Shell haven't paid a penny in windfall tax. Why? Because for
He's being destroyed here. Sunak is being utterly destroyed. Dismantled.
every pound they spend digging for fossil fuels, he hands them a 90p tax break. And it's costing the taxpayer billions. So will he find a backbone and end his absurd oil and gas giveaway?
Fucking right, man.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what the party opposite will never understand is that it's businesses investing that create jobs in this country.
Thatcher said that about the water companies, and now it was this summer that the water companies were complaining when we complained to them that they hadn't fixed our water system. They complained to us, "Oh, look, it's a Victorian water system," which you promised to invest to fix. Once again, right-wing Tory lies. Fucking ridiculous.
Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House, we understand that. We will support businesses to invest, to create jobs.
It's bullshit.
That's how we create prosperity. That's how we support strong public services. And that's what you get with a Conservative government.
We haven't got strong public services because you Tories have stripped them to the fucking bone. My God, the avarice.
There's only one party that crashed the economy and they're all sitting there. It's a pattern, Mr. Speaker, it's a pattern with this Prime Minister. Too weak to sack the security threat sat around the cabinet table. Too weak to take part in a leadership contest after he lost the first one. Too weak to stand up for working people. He spent weeks flirting with the climate change deniers in his party, then scuttled off to cot at the last minute. In the budget next week, he'll be too weak to end his oil and gas giveaway, scrap the non-dom tax breaks, and end the farce of taxpayers subsidising private schools. That's what Labour would do, a proper plan for working people. Mr. Speaker, if he can't even stand up to a cartoon bully with a...
There you go. Also adding what Labour would do. I'll rewind that. Just for the sake of people who like to argue that Labour have never got a fucking argument.
It's a pattern, Mr. Speaker, it's a pattern with this Prime Minister. Too weak to sack the security threat sat around the cabinet table. Too weak to take part in a leadership contest after he lost the first one. Too weak to stand up for working people. He spent weeks flirting with the climate change deniers in his party, then scuttled off to cot at the last minute. In the budget next week, he'll be too weak to end his oil and gas giveaway, scrap the non-dom tax breaks, and end the farce of taxpayers subsidising private schools. That's what Labour would do.
Just once more.
It's a pattern, Mr. Speaker, it's a pattern with this Prime Minister. Too weak to sack the security threat sat around the cabinet table. Too weak to take part in a leadership contest after he lost the first one. Too weak to stand up for working people. He spent weeks flirting with the climate change deniers in his party, then scuttled off to cot at the last minute. In the budget next week, he'll be too weak to end his oil and gas giveaway.
Right. End the oil and gas giveaway to the companies so that the windfall tax is an actual windfall tax.
Scrap the non-dom tax break.
Scrap non-dom tax breaks.
And end the farce of taxpayers subsidising private schools.
There you go.
That's what Labour would do, a proper plan for working people. Mr. Speaker, if he can't even stand up to a cartoon bully with a pet spider, if he's too scared to face the public in an election, what chance has he got of running the country?
Mr. Speaker.
We want to try and get through on time, and I know some members want to catch my eye. They're not doing a good job so far. Come on, Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman talks about judgment about putting people around the cabinet table. I would just gently remind him he thought the member for Islington North was the right person to look after
This
our
is
security.
a fucking dead horse you're beating, mate. Corbyn's not even a member of the Labour Party anymore. Plus, that was the other side of the pandemic. Like, this argument of, he voted for, he thought Corbyn would have made a good Prime Minister. Oh, Corbyn. Oh, everyone be scared about Corbyn. Fucking shut up. It's a stupid argument. And it's falling flat with a lot of people.
But Mr. Speaker, the honourable gentleman, he said a lot today. But it's clear that he isn't focused on the serious issues that are confronting our country. We're strengthening our economy. He's backing the strikers. We're supporting people with energy bills.
He never said he backed the strikers. Now, I do, but Starmer never said he did. So, once again, he's Boris Johnsoning this. And Penny Mordaunt doesn't look impressed.
He's supporting the protesters. And we're tackling illegal migration. He's opposing every measure. The British people want...
I see... behind Sunak, right? I can see Cruella Braverman. Like... Right? But it looks like she's doing that. Right, ventriloquist. Did she write his fucking speech for him?
Real leadership on the serious global challenges we face, and that's what they'll get from this government.
Right.
Mr. Speaker, 84 years ago today in Germany, hundreds of synagogues were destroyed, Torah schools were desecrated. Thousands of Jewish businesses and shops were destroyed as well. 91 Jewish people were murdered, and later 30,000 Jewish men were sent to the concentration camps. So as we commemorate Kristallnacht, let us remember that it was started with anti-Jewish hatred, it became anti-Semitism, and it's still prevalent in society today. So will my right honourable friend condemn anti-Semitism in all its forms, but congratulate the Holocaust survivors who give their testimony?
There are going to be people that might kick off at me here. But I am an anti-Semite, not based on hate, but based on the fact that I am anti any of the Semitic religions, Christianity, Judaism, or Islam. I'm against them. I'm not someone who goes around repeating racist slurs, because I'm not racist. I am just anti-Christian, anti-Jewish, and anti-Islam. Which technically means I'm anti-Semitic. This is what I mean by absolutism, by the way. It makes so many terms so loaded for people.
Yeah. and in particular congratulate the Holocaust Educational Trust for the brilliant work they do in making sure we will never ever forget what happened in the Holocaust.
I would like to add that I'm not advocating, I'm no Nazi, by the way. I would not advocate, you know, the roundup and wholesale slaughter of anyone, let alone, apart from maybe paedophiles, but anyway, you know, of any one culture. I can't, no. I might be against these people, but I'm not. How do I put this? I don't sit here frothing at the mouth every time I see a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim. It's just if they try to convert me, I will be told it's not happening. I am against what you believe in. And it's not the little pieces out of their faith, it's the big one. The fact that they believe in one God. And in exclusion to all others. Meaning that they refuse to acknowledge anyone else's gods. And see themselves superior because of it. This is historically proven. This is historically provable fact. Yes, it's my opinion, but it's born from historically provable facts. It's why I don't like Christianity, Islam, or Judaism. It does not mean I am racist.
Thank my honourable friend.
It does not mean that I would advocate for the wholesale persecution of any culture.
And for his powerful question and his continued work on this issue. I completely agree with him. Anti-Semitism has no place in our society, and we're taking a strong lead in tackling it in all forms. We became the first country to adopt the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, and the government's independent advisor on anti-Semitism regularly provides advice to ministers on how best to tackle this issue. And can I join him, as I know that
it is possible I'm getting that term wrong as well, by the way. It could be that I am anti-Abrahamic. That's also possible.
The whole House will, in praising the work of those survivors who so bravely tell their stories so that we might never forget.
Might be a bit wrong.
SNP leader Ian Blackford.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and can I associate myself with the remarks of the Prime Minister for Armistice this day. We remember those that paid the ultimate sacrifice, those that continue to serve, and we should also remember the nuclear test veterans who continue to seek justice for themselves. Mr. Speaker, last night the Prime Minister suffered the self-inflicted loss of his first Cabinet Minister. A couple of weeks into the job, it turns out this Prime Minister's judgment is every bit as bad as his predecessors.
He's not going to be left alone.
We now know that his former friend, the former Prime Minister, plans to hand out seats in the House of Lords to at least 4 Tory MPs, including the current Secretary of State for Scotland. So here's another test of judgment for the new Prime Minister. Does he think it right to keep a man in the Cabinet who's clearly far more interested in getting his hands on an ermine robe than playing by the rules of Scottish democracy?
Mr. Speaker, I'm obviously not going to comment on speculation around such lists. Any list would, of course, follow the normal procedures and processes that are in place.
I'm afraid it's not speculation, and of course the Prime Minister clearly doesn't get how corrupt this all looks to people in Scotland. Because not only do we have a UK government that denies democracy, we now have a Secretary of State that is running scared from it. In the middle of a Tory cost of living crisis, the Scotland office is now to be led by a baron in waiting, biding his time until he can cash in on the 300-day job for life in the House of Lords. He should be sacked from the Cabinet, and the people of Dumfries and Galloway should be given the chance to sack the Tories in a by-election. The Prime Minister's judgment is already in tatters. If he has any integrity left, will he now put a stop to these 2 predecessors stuffing the House of Lords with his cronies?
Mr. Speaker, what the Secretary of State and I are jointly focused on is working constructively with the Scottish Government to deliver for the people of Scotland. I'll be pleased to be meeting the First Minister tomorrow because that, I think, is what the people of Scotland want to see.
Mr. Speaker, criminal gangs who are operating to bring people into this country in small boats, an issue that directly affects my constituents of Folkestone and Hythe, are openly using social media platforms to recruit people to use their services. Can my right honourable friend confirm that the online safety bill will require social media platforms to take effective action to remove this content? And is it also the intention of the government to bring the bill back later this month?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his work in raising awareness of this particular issue? He is absolutely right, and I'm pleased to give him the reassurance that the online safety bill will require platforms to remove and limit the spread of illegal content and activity online. Assisting illegal immigration is listed as a priority bill a priority offence in the bill, and we look forward to bringing it back to the House in due course.
Samuel Roberts.
The Prime Minister is struggling to rebuild the Tories' ruined economic credibility after his predecessor scorned the Office for Budget Responsibility. But in a Bloomberg interview just last week, his Trade Secretary disputed OBR forecasts that trade will be 15% lower because of Brexit. Britain's economic prospects are worsened by being outside the world's largest trading bloc. That is a fact. So who does he agree with? The OBR or his Tory minister?
Well, Mr. Speaker, one of the great opportunities of Brexit is our ability to trade more with countries around the world.
It's bullshit.
Actually, I know the honourable lady will actually want to speak to many of the Welsh farmers who are enjoying selling their lamb to the new markets that we have opened up for them.
They are pissed at you, mate.
That's what we'll get on and deliver.
The farmers around the country are pissed off because you left them out in the cold.
Mr. Speaker, excessive housing targets are placing greater and greater pressure on councils to approve development which damages our environment. When the Prime Minister came to Finchley over the summer, he said he wanted to abolish those targets. Will he use the Levelling Up Bill report stage to bring forward government amendments to do that?
Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to making home ownership a reality for a new generation, and we must build homes in the right places where people want to live and work. But as the right honourable lady knows, and as I said, I want those decisions to be taken locally, with greater say for local communities rather than distant bureaucrats. And my right honourable friend, the Secretary of State, is happy to sit and meet with her to discuss how best to make this a reality.
Mr. Speaker, does the Prime Minister remember back in February when he was Chancellor of the Exchequer, when I informed him that due to his incompetence in that job, the children in my constituency would go to bed that night with no food in their tummy and no heat in their homes? What is he now going to do as Prime Minister to make sure that in every community in our country, children aren't in that situation in this hard winter ahead?
Well, Mr. Speaker, the absolute best way to ensure that children do not grow up in poverty, which is something that none of us want to see, is to ensure that they do not grow up in a workless household. And the record under these governments is that 700,000 fewer children are growing up in workless households, and that's because Conservative governments create jobs for people, Mr. Speaker, and that's the best anti-poverty strategy that we have.
It's funny considering a lot of these people have to do 2 or more jobs. Yeah, that's fantastic, Rishi Sunak. Fantastic. That's really, really, really ideal.
Friday, I visited a bridging hotel in my constituency that is currently housing 77
by those who can't work
and refugees, as local organisations search for permanent accommodation for them following the success of Operation Pitting. Many of the refugees I met held highly skilled jobs back in Afghanistan, including a doctor, international athletes and government ministers. Can the Prime Minister assure the House that our government will do more to support these highly skilled individuals to enter the UK workforce?
Well, it's nice to hear from my honourable friend again this week, and I can reassure him that we are completely committed to supporting Afghan refugees into the employment opportunities here in the UK. The Department for Work and Pensions has a full programme in place, and I can also tell him that our Refugee Leads Network brings together refugee organisations and DWP to connect those refugees with employment opportunities, and I look forward to seeing the fruits of that programme with him in the near future.
Bradshaw. 5 years ago, the government belatedly launched a review into the security risk posed by handing thousands of mainly wealthy Russian and Chinese nationals so-called golden visas so that they could live in Britain. It also promised to publish the results of that review. Why hasn't it?
Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, we did indeed review and indeed end the visa that the honourable gentleman is raising. The Home Office is currently conducting the right way to replace that visa with something that is more sustainable going forward and protects our security interests. I'll be happy to have the Home Secretary write to him with an update on that process.
Sounds like a bit of a kick-off like that.
The UK has a workforce shortage, yet millions of parents are unable to work at full tilt, and childcare providers are going belly up due to policies being a maddeningly expensive muddle of a mess. Will my right honourable friend please confirm that after decades of ineffective tinkering and endless policies, that he will be the man to give us proper childcare reform?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say we've announced ambitious new plans to improve the cost, the choice and the availability of childcare to benefit hundreds of thousands of parents across the country. This includes measures to increase the number of children that we can look after by each staff member and indeed make it easier for people to become childminded.
So you're just going to make it as hard on the daycare centres as it is on schools. We need to be lessening the amount of students in each class, not adding more. And it's the same with this. What you need is to facilitate more of these people. It's ridiculous.
We'll respond to all of these proposals in very short order.
Best to facilitate.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I know the Prime Minister's been very busy failing to stand up to bullies, but in the real world, schools and colleges across the country looking after actual children are struggling to make ends meet. One London head teacher has scrapped plans for mental health counsellors. A head teacher in Twickenham is no longer filling teaching assistant vacancies, whilst another is axing school trips. So, Mr. Speaker, will the Prime Minister give pupils and parents a cast-iron guarantee that in next week's autumn statement there will be no real terms cuts to school and college budgets?
Mr. Speaker, we've significantly increased funding going into schools over the next 2 years. But on top
if
of
that's
that,
the case, then why are they having to do what they're doing, you fucking dick?
Who left behind their education opportunities during the pandemic, which is why we invested £5 billion to helping those children catch up, including unveiling the most comprehensive.
It was said that we needed 15 billion for the education sector. That's what was needed. Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak were told that 5 billion would not be enough. And this was from the educational guru they hired.
Programme of tutoring that this country has ever seen, and is closing the attainment gap and disproportionately benefiting disadvantaged children, and is something that I know all colleagues will get behind.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Despite a productive meeting with the Immigration Minister yesterday, the Home Office continues to house over 400 asylum seekers in 2 neighbouring hotels in my constituency. It's clear from my meetings with GPs and Derbyshire Police that this huge influx of people in such a small area is putting local services under immense strain. Before services in Erewash hit breaking point, will my right honourable friend commit to immediate reduction in asylum seekers concentrated in one place, and will he intervene to set a timetable for the permanent closure of accommodation centres at this location?
Well, Mr. Speaker, let me give my honourable friend my absolute cast-iron commitment that we want to get to grips with this problem. The best way to resolve it is to stop criminal gangs profiting from an illegal trade in human lives, and the unacceptable rise in channel crossings, which is putting unsustainable pressure on our system and local services. She has my reassurance that the Home Secretary and I are working day and night to resolve this problem, not just to end the use of expensive contingency accommodation, but for more fundamental reform so that we can finally get to grips with this issue, protect our borders, and end illegal migration.
On Butler. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, under the Prime Minister's short premiership, he's had one minister resign and one that urgently needs to be sacked. Can the Prime Minister clarify to the House and the rest of the country when the scheduled programme of integrity, professionalism and accountability will begin?
Mr. Speaker, it's precisely because I want a government characterised by integrity, professionalism and accountability that the right honourable gentleman was right to resign, and it's right that we have an independent
You
process.
gave him your full support only yesterday before he resigned. You are a weak pile of shite.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
He's a puddle of shite. It's not even a pile.
How is it? It's quite amazing, isn't it, when a minister's gone from his post to get more cheers. Come on, Dave Ross.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleagues. Just like the Prime Minister, I was very fortunate to join the Royal British Legion in becoming a Poppy volunteer recently. I joined colleagues in
this is
Aberflangley.
just going into nothing. Well, as usual, I cut short, but you got the main pieces out of that today. What bullshit! Wow! And I didn't think the first line of questioning that Starmer took was great at first, but he went into that and just dismantled and dismembered. Rishi Sunak was just... He pulled out his prosecutorial tricks in en masse today. Brilliant. Am I impressed with what he said earlier this week? Was it yesterday? Like in the weekend or something? About closed borders? It's a tactic. Is it what he really believes? I doubt it. But I will probably speak about that in another video. Again, I'll go into there's a couple of other videos I want to make on some rather incendiary subjects for myself. Sort of some things that made me really pissed off. Especially the whole thing with the LBC reporter getting nicked yesterday. Fuck it, and various others. Just for being journalists. What is this, fucking China or Russia? Anyway, that'll be a separate video. Yeah, this Sunak is so weak. He's trying to be sneaky here, there, and everywhere, but he's being obvious while doing it. He's shit. He is weak. I am not seeing, like. I was hearing that, he'd probably do his own style in Prime Minister's Square. He's just using Boris's style. He's got no style. The man is he's completely flaccid. He's a lyrebird. He just mimics everyone else. I'm and I mean, the weakest thing of all was his response about Gavin Williamson, because it was only yesterday before Gavin Williams resigned that Rishi Sunak was saying he had full confidence in him. So, were you right yesterday or are you right now, Mr. Sunak? You can't sneak away from this one, you little prick. But yeah, he just made things harder for himself. It's ridiculous. And fucking hilarious. It'll be funny. It's going to be funny to watch other people's reactions to this. Yeah. Anyway, this has been She Had a Wee Dump. This has been my reaction to Sneaky Sunaks' third PMQs. It's been my dog Specky. Bless her Thursday, everyone.